Some presidents are remembered for what they accomplished. Others are remembered for what they never had the chance to finish. In El Salvador, 3 leaders shared a remarkable fate. Each rose to power with a vision for the future, and none lived to see that vision fulfilled. Today, I'm in San Salvador's historic center, exploring the lives and legacies of these lost presidents and stepping inside the National Palace, where their stories and the story of the nation itself still echo through the halls. Before we begin, I'd like to sincerely thank some truly wonderful supporters. Carol, Lauda, Terry, Karen, Bree, Victor, and Will. Your generosity, encouragement, and kindness continue to make these journeys possible, and I am deeply grateful for your unwavering support. Last week's top comment goes to CW. I haven't been to every country in the world, but I'm sure that even if I had, El Salvador would be near the top of the list for the kindest people. I felt nothing but safe here, and for the most part, very welcomed. To all who continue to share your thoughts, thank you. I read every comment, and they mean more than you know. Please keep them coming. I've started a channel membership. If you're interested, click subscribe and then join for more details.
This is Plaza Barrios, and the statue of Captain General Gerardo Barrios is front and center. I'm going to turn the camera around. Well, I have been here many times, and I don't think it's by accident that the day that I come here to film, there is an obstruction in front of the palace. It's been beautiful, just pristine this whole time, and now suddenly there's something in front of it obstructing the view. It's really pretty, and so is the square. I love that everything in this country is being repaired. I just wish they could have repaired it before I got here.
Plaza Barrios occupies a place of honor at the heart of San Salvador's historic center, surrounded by some of the nation's most important landmarks, including the Metropolitan Cathedral, the National Palace, and the National Library. At its center rises a commanding bronze monument dedicated to General Gerardo Barrios, one of El Salvador's most celebrated military leaders and reformers. Mounted atop a powerful steed, Barrios is depicted in the midst of command, his posture conveying both authority and determination as he directs the course of history. The statue stands upon an imposing granite pedestal, richly embellished with bronze reliefs portraying dramatic scenes of battle and adorned with the national coat of arms, creating a monument that honors not only the man himself, but the ideals of courage, leadership, and nationhood that he came to represent.
I'm going to try to walk around a little bit because it's busy, but it's not as busy as it could be, except for the pigeons. There are pigeons everywhere. But anyway, Barrios was president of El Salvador not once, not twice, but 3 times, thrice.
His first term came in 1858, though only in a provisional capacity while the sitting president recovered from illness. In 1859, following the resignation of another president, Barrios assumed leadership once again. Finally, in 1860, he was elected to the office in his own right.
Barrios was a reformer. he sought to modernize El Salvador, to a certain extent to Europeanize El Salvador through both economic development as well as education.
He expanded the country's academic horizons, founding 3 universities, one for each of his presidencies. Believing El Salvador would thrive as a global coffee producer, Barrios championed agricultural advancement and promoted coffee as the chief export. Yet, in doing so, he also laid the foundation for a powerful coffee oligarchy, whose influence would shape the country's political and economic trajectory for generations. The focus on coffee and lack of diversification meant that if and when coffee failed, El Salvador would have no backup plan.
As I'm walking to the statue, the palace is behind me. Maybe you can see it a little bit there. Yeah, there it is. So legend has it that the palace was actually one of Barrios's ideas. However, he wouldn't live to see it be built or see any of the repercussions of his decisions as president.
In 1863, Guatemalan forces invaded El Salvador, overthrew Barrios, and installed a new regime. Forced into exile, he was eventually captured in Nicaragua in 1865 and returned to an El Salvador still under foreign influence. After a swift court-martial, he was executed by firing squad.
At one point in time, this plaza was named Plaza Bolivar after Simón Bolívar. But obviously today it's named after Barrios with a giant statue to him. It's a long-lasting tribute to a president with a complicated legacy. Imagine that the year is 1913. In 1913, there's no internet, there's no television, there's barely even radio. This plaza was a gathering spot. It's where people came for entertainment. It still is a gathering spot where people come for entertainment, even more so when it's not obstructed. Anywho, in 1913, there was a president named Manuel Araujo, and he had been president for 2 years at that point. He came and he sat here on a bench, much like the one that I'm sitting on now, and he was being entertained with his family. He was close enough to the palace to believe that he was safe.
In 1913, President Araujo sat on a bench enjoying a concert. Music drifted through the plaza as the crowd listened and applauded. Then, 3 men approached. They blended easily into the crowd, drawing no attention at all. Araujo was then suddenly and deliberately attacked by the 3 men with machetes. One of them also shot him. He died 5 days later, becoming the only sitting president in El Salvador's history to be assassinated. The attackers, described as peasant farmers, were captured and executed by firing squad. No definitive motive for the assassination was ever established. However, the harsh realities of life on El Salvador's coffee plantations, where labor conditions often resembled those of master and slave, have long been considered a likely contributing factor. Peasant farmers were displaced from their ancestral lands by coffee barons and then forced to work for scraps. Beneath the prosperity of the coffee era lay deep social and economic inequities, tensions that likely played a role in the tragedy that unfolded.
There is a lot of history in this plaza. I got here really early to try to avoid the crowds and the heat. I failed at both. But ideally, my goal was to be one of the first people to get into the palace.
The original National Palace was completed in 1870. In addition to meeting rooms, it contained a library of records and historical manuscripts. In 1889, it was destroyed by a devastating fire. Though no lives were lost, much of the nation's documentary heritage was consumed in the blaze. To fund its replacement, the government imposed a tax of 1 colon, the former national currency, on every quintal, or roughly 100 pounds, of exported coffee. As a result, the palace that stands today was completed in 1911, a product of El Salvador's prosperous coffee era. President Manuel Enrique Araujo was the first to occupy it, though his time there would be tragically brief. This edifice, though predominantly neoclassical in style, weaves together striking elements of Renaissance and Baroque architecture, a testament to the nation's lofty aspirations and the enduring imprint of European influence. Six towering ivory-colored Corinthian columns adorn the palace facade, lending the entrance a sense of neoclassical grandeur and timeless elegance. At the foot of the broad staircase, two imposing bronze statues stand in solemn vigil, serving as enduring guardians of the nation's history and heritage. To the left stands Queen Isabella of Castile, captured as she opens a coffer, presumably filled with the wealth that helped launch an age of exploration. Her ambition, resources, and unwavering devotion to Catholicism led her to sponsor the voyages of Christopher Columbus at the close of the 15th century. Opposite her is Columbus himself, portrayed in a moment of explication, holding scrolls, possibly maps, symbols of the uncharted worlds his expeditions would soon reveal. These statues were gifted by the King of Spain in 1924, commemorating the anniversary of Columbus's historic journey and marking a turning point that, for better or for worse, forever altered the course of history. Admission to the National Palace is $5 for foreign visitors, with proceeds helping to preserve and maintain this remarkable historic landmark. The fee includes a guided tour, and my guide spoke excellent English, making the experience both accessible and informative. Access was somewhat limited during my visit due to preparations for an event later that evening, but even so, the palace was breathtaking. Everything about this place inspires awe. It stands as a magnificent expression of Salvadoran achievement and national pride. Gilded details adorn much of the interior, their golden brilliance catching the sunlight with dazzling effect. The palace rises across 2 floors, connected by elegant marble staircases and centered around a vast open courtyard filled with fountains, mature trees, and vibrant flowers beneath the open sky. For many years, this building served as the seat of the nation's 3 branches of government. Within its stately walls are 4 grand salons, each distinguished by its own symbolic color, as well as 101 secondary rooms rich in history and meaning. The National Palace is also home to some of the finest tile work in the Americas, with each room showcasing its own distinctive floor and ceiling designs, creating a masterpiece of craftsmanship throughout the building. El Salón Amarillo, or the Yellow Room, served as the presidential office from 1911 until 1931. Remember that year. The chamber is both elegant and imposing, designed to convey the dignity of the nation's highest office. Its walls are painted a soft, pale yellow that bathes the room in a warm, golden glow. Beneath them stretches a floor of deep red tile, creating a striking contrast with the lighter tones above. Rich, dark cherry wood adorns the doors, furnishings, and decorative details, lending the room an air of refinement and authority. Above one of the grand doorways, a stunning stained glass transom radiates vibrant shades of red, yellow, green, and blue, casting colorful reflections across the interior when illuminated by sunlight. Overhead, magnificent chandeliers hang from the high ceiling, their intricate craftsmanship adding yet another layer of grandeur to a room that once witnessed some of the most important decisions in Salvadoran history. El Salón Rojo, the Red Room, was originally reserved for diplomatic receptions and the formal presentation of ambassadors' credentials. Since the rule of General Maximiliano Hernández Martínez in 1931, remember that name, it is served as a venue for state ceremonies and official functions. Above the doorways are portraits of notable figures from Salvadoran history, including President Manuel Enrique Araujo and Francisco Morazán. Their images silently watching over the proceedings held within these distinguished walls. El Salón Rosado, the Pink Room, once served as the home of the Supreme Court and later the Ministry of Defense. Its design closely mirrors that of the Yellow Room, though it is distinguished by a graceful palette of both light and deep pink tones that adorn the walls. Rich red tile flooring stretches across the chamber, while elegant chandeliers suspended from the ceiling lend the room a sense of refinement and dignity. Above multiple doorways, beautiful stained glass transoms glow with soft shades of yellow, blue, and pink, adding a delicate touch of color to the interior. The upholstered chairs are original to the room and, despite the visible marks of time, remain remarkably well preserved. Above a doorway in the far corner hangs an image of Gerardo Barrios, a quiet reminder of one of El Salvador's most influential statesmen. Most iconic of all the chambers within the National Palace is El Salón Azul, the Blue Room. It was here that the legislature convened, making it one of the most historically significant spaces in the nation. The room is simply magnificent. Rows of finely crafted dark cherry wood desks and chairs remain in place, where lawmakers once debated the affairs of the Republic. Elegant chandeliers hang from the ceiling, illuminating a chamber defined by dignity, symmetry, and classical grandeur. Its remarkable architectural beauty earned national recognition, and in 1974, it was declared a National Historic Landmark. Today, El Salón Azul stands as a solemn and enduring tribute to El Salvador's parliamentary heritage. For more than a century, The National Palace has stood at the heart of Salvadoran history. Within these walls, presidents governed, legislatures debated, judges rendered decisions, diplomats negotiated, and the course of the nation was shaped. It has witnessed moments of triumph and tragedy, prosperity and upheaval, serving as a stage and a silent witness to the unfolding story of El Salvador. Yet, beyond its political significance, the palace is a work of art. Its soaring columns, marble staircases, radiant courtyards, intricate tile work, stained glass, and gilded halls speak to a generation determined to build something worthy of the republic they envisioned. Every salon, every corridor, and every carefully crafted detail reflects the ambitions, achievements, and complexities of the nation that created it. As I stepped back into the sunlight and took one final look at its magnificent facade, I was struck by a simple realization. The National Palace is far more than a historic building. It is a monument to memory itself, a place where the stories of Francisco Morazan, Gerardo Barrios, Manuel Enrique Araujo, Maximiliano Hernandez Martinez, and countless others continue to echo through the decades. To visit is not merely to tour a palace, but to walk through the very rooms where the history of El Salvador was written.
So as I leave the palace, I am reminded of the story of a president who barely got to be a president here. I don't think I can not tell that story, so it's time to go to my favorite coffee house.
I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I love this cafe. At this point, I've visited so often that the staff probably have a designated emergency contact form with my name on it. They're wonderful, welcoming, and somehow always seem ready for whatever beverage experiment I dream up. The funny thing is, I don't even drink coffee. Yet, this place has elevated fusion drinks to an art form. What you're looking at is a chai matcha latte with coconut milk, a combination that sounds like 3 separate people placed orders at the same time. My advice? Walk in, unleash your imagination, and order whatever strange and delicious concoction your mind can create. Chances are they'll smile, nod, and say, "Sure, we can make that."
Arturo Araujo, who shares the same last name as the assassinated president and was either a distant relative of that president or just not related to him at all. Anywho, he was born in El Salvador in the 19th century to a family of considerable means.
Like most of the nation's elite, his inheritance came not only in land but in worldview, one that instinctively favored the powerful coffee barons over the impoverished laborers who bit beneath the sun to harvest their wealth. Yet, destiny, as it often does, had other plans.
In England, where Araujo went to study, he encountered the ideals of the British Labour Party.
There, amid the stirrings of a new social consciousness, his mind awakened to the plight of the worker. He returned home not merely educated, but transformed, bearing a vision profoundly at odds with the rigid hierarchies that governed Salvadoran life.
On his own estates, Araujo became a revolutionary, making changes unheard of anywhere in Central America, where agriculture still operated on the feudal system.
He doubled the wages of his laborers, provided them with housing and medical care, and established humane conditions unheard of in the Republic. The people began to call him El Benefactor de los Obreros, the benefactor of the workers. His reputation spread quickly, and laborers from neighboring plantations abandoned their employers to join him, drawn by the rare promise of dignity.
In 1919, emboldened by his growing following, Araujo founded the Salvadoran Labour Party and declared his candidacy for the presidency.
His campaign struck at the heart of the oligarchic dynasty that had ruled since the assassination of Manuel Enrique Araujo, the Melendez-Quiñones family. Power passed between their kin as predictably as the seasons. Carlos Melendez, followed by his brother-in-law, Alfonso Quiñones, who in turn handed the office to Jorge Melendez, the younger brother of previous President Carlos Melendez.
In the election of 1919, Araujo's candidacy challenged this hereditary order. But the Salvadoran system was not built for reformers.
Amid widespread fraud, Jorge Melendez was declared the winner. Pio Romero Bosque, brother-in-law of Alfonso Quiñones, placed second, and Araujo, a distant third. For the ruling elite, it was reassurance. For the working class, betrayal. Believing the election stolen, Araujo raised a small army of supporters and launched a coup in 1920. It failed. Forced into exile in Honduras, he watched from afar as the dynasty continued its careful succession. Yet, even in defeat, Araujo's ideas endured. When he was eventually allowed to return, it was under the condition that he remain silent, a condition Araujo accepted in form only, not in spirit. He withdrew to his estate in El Salvador's northwest, where his support remained steadfast.
Then, in 1927, the unexpected occurred. Pio Romero Bosque, long a member of the oligarchy, assumed the presidency and broke from its grip.
Surviving an attempted coup by his former allies, Bosque took an unprecedented step. He refused to handpick a successor or rig the upcoming election. In 1931, Araujo ran once more, and this time, he triumphed. For the first time in decades, a free and fair election ushered in a president chosen by the people. Tragically, it would also be the last for many decades.
Araujo assumed the presidency on March 1st, 1931. His vice president and his minister of war was Brigadier General Maximiliano Hernandez Martinez. Remember that name. But the year was 1931, and the timing for El Salvador and the world could not have been worse.
The Great Depression, born of many factors only compounded by the 1929 Wall Street crash, had sent economic shockwaves around the world. In El Salvador, coffee, the lifeblood of the nation's economy, collapsed in price. Unemployment soared. Hunger spread like wildfire.
Araujo sought to shield the poor with bold reforms, but the treasury was empty.
His administration borrowed heavily from abroad, drawing criticism from the elite and disillusionment from the masses. Protests erupted. In a desperate bid to balance the budget, his government cut funding to the one institution he could not afford to alienate: the military.
On December 2nd, 1931, after only 9 months in office, the army struck back.
President Araujo was overthrown in a coup led by his own vice president, Brigadier General Hernandez Martinez, who seized the presidency. Araujo fled once again into exile, this time to Guatemala, where he would live out the majority of his remaining years, his dream of reform extinguished, but not forgotten.
Araujo's downfall marked more than the end of his presidency. It signaled the downfall of democracy in El Salvador. From that moment forward, the country descended into decades of military rule, repression, and bloodshed, culminating in a brutal 12-year civil war that nearly erased its indigenous population. What do you think defines a hero in El Salvador's story? Is it military strength like Barrios or Hernandez Martinez? Is it sacrifice like Araujo #1? Or is it compassion like Araujo #2? Let me know in the comments. And while you're at it, please click the like button. It helps more than you know.
As I leave the historic center, I'm reminded that history is never just about buildings or monuments. It's about people, choices, and the consequences that follow. From Gerardo Barrios to Manuel Enrique Araujo, Arturo Araujo, Pio Romero Bosque, and Maximiliano Hernandez Martinez, the story of El Salvador unfolded in the very places we've explored today. Their legacies remain complicated, their impact undeniable, and their stories still echo through these streets. Stay curious, be inspired, find freedom, wander elsewhere. I'll see you in the next one.
No one ever knows where we heading, where the story goes. I just gotta hold on to my path, what feels right in my heart and my soul.